Hey, friends, let me get my microphone here. All right, streaming live. It is Peggy Hall, and today's Friday. It is November 10th. And I like to do a little bit of a more lighthearted broadcast for you on Friday. Well, welcome to my virtual room. The reason why I have a virtual background is number one, for my privacy, and you might say my safety. Number two, I'm not always in an area that has a pleasant background. And that leads to number three, I want to create a pleasant, welcoming, hopefully, you find this lovely, the background, and it's something that is appealing and brings you a little bit of a sense of peace of mind. That is what I intend with these backdrops. And many of you have said that you really like them and you're curious to see which one I'm going to do on which video. So there you have the reasons why I have a virtual background. From time to time, I do have non-virtual backgrounds, but given the lighting and the setting, some people have a studio where they do their podcast or their broadcast. And somebody made a mention about the video that I did about Jack Hibbs questioning his lack of empathy for those innocents that are being murdered in retribution and revenge. And somebody said, gosh, his background on his podcast, he did a follow-up podcast, kind of doubling down on his comments. And somebody said, gosh, it looks so dreary, like he's in a dungeon. And, I get it. Everybody has different backgrounds for their podcasts. But the reason why I'm talking about appearances and backgrounds and all of that is because the topic of the video is what pastors are wearing in church, apparently. So I'm going to show you some patterns that I've noticed, but I want to ask you a question. Number one, do you attend a church? And if so, what do you typically wear to church? Is your church very casual? In Southern California, it's like flip-flops and t-shirts and shorts. Of course, Pastor David has had his beach church for, a few years now. We are on hiatus, but you can see Pastor David's preaching on his True Hope Tuesday broadcast, which is on YouTube. And I'm just curious, do you dress up like you're going to a party or out to dinner or a wedding? Or do you just go like in whatever is comfortable and whatever you have on hand? And I'm just curious about what you do. Of course, we cannot control what anybody else does, but I want to share with you these very interesting patterns. And before I do that, let me share with you what I saw yesterday. I shared this with you briefly, and then we'll hear from the sponsor and then dive right into the video. So in my video yesterday about the CDC is ramping up what they're calling voluntary testing at the airport. Yeah, you know how long these things last as a voluntary measure. And I said, look at this picture of it's Danica Patrick. And what's so interesting about this picture is I was researching something about these black motorcycle jackets. And then when I came on to do my broadcast, they were playing an advertisement, a video ad, and this was in the video ad. That just goes to show you what these black screens are doing. They're monitoring what you see, what you research, and obviously what you say. I will be bringing you a future video about this education course that I had to go through on YouTube to make sure that I knew all of the rules and what I could say. And all right, friends, I want to show you on our little bit of a lighthearted fun day Friday, I want to show you what I've noticed. Okay, and I noticed this starting with Pastor Jack Hibbs. Now, let me give you a little bit of a caveat. Short little background, because some of you have been asking about my faith and my background and so forth. So I was raised Catholic. I attended Catholic church. And when we went to church, we were dressed up. I always wore a dress. We had something on my head. And even into the later years when the Catholic Church started to be more modernized or contemporary, where they changed the music and they took the church out of Latin and they went to English and they made other changes, which have not been following the Catholic Church for some time. So I don't know all of them, but I would say that the times that I did attend church, people were still dressed in, I would say, respectable, maybe reverent. I made a couple of notes here for some, respectable and just like they were dressed up so that they took some care in their appearance. And I think how people dress is completely up to them. It's a personal choice. I have no issue with what anyone wears. That's not the point of my video. The point of my video is to share with you a very interesting trend and then to ask you what kind of message you think is being sent. Now, over the years, my faith has, I would just say, developed and grown. And I want to thank all of my healthy American Catholics who pray for me to return to the Catholic Church. I want to let you know that our audience is so incredible. In Healthy American Audience, we have Catholics. And let's start right in with the slideshow. And then I do want to hear from you regarding what you like to, if you attend church or not, and if you have, what you wear, what you've seen other people wear. I'm just curious. And let's do this. I'm going to share my screen and we are going to hop right on over to Pastor Jack Hibbs. Now, I have nothing at all against the person of Pastor Jack Hibbs. And for those of you that may have misconstrued my questioning of his doctrine and the questioning of his lack of empathy regarding those innocents that are dying, let me just give you the full picture here. I just want to clarify my statements that I was very troubled with a rather like a throwaway line of his of, well, people die during war. And it's like, I don't think that would go very well if you were to say that in World War II about the Jews. I mean, over the many subsequent years, people have been horrified and they were like, oh my gosh, how could people have stood by and done nothing while we were, told this is what was happening to the Jews in World War II? Well, a lot of people are standing by and doing nothing now. And there's another type of, ethnic, I don't even like to use the word cleansing because it gives the image that they were dirty and have to be removed, but this ethnic extermination. Anyway, the point being, I pray for Jack Hibbs. I pray for y'all. I pray for myself. That's a part of my spiritual life. And I have no animosity toward the person of Jack Hibbs, right? I pray that no soul is lost to God's love. That is my constant prayer. In fact, if I remember, I will end with a prayer today because I have a prayer that I wrote for activists. And that is one thing that I pray for the Lord to convict me of when I cross the line. And if I have done so, I definitely repent and I apologize for that. But there are different perspectives in the Christian church, and I don't hold the same one that Pastor Jack Hibbs has. But that's not the point of this video. The point of the video is that some of you, and in private emails as well, told me that you were like, wow, that's so interesting that that he's, well, let me just do the slideshow. And this was triggered by some of your comments about what he was wearing. So here we have Jack Hibbs, black shirt, black jacket. And then here he is again. Maybe it's a different shirt, but this was a different period, looks like a different jacket. And I thought he reminds me so much of Greg Laurie, because Greg Laurie, and these are both Southern California pastors. If you're not in Southern California, you might not have heard of them, but they do have it's what's called mega churches. I mean, thousands of parishioners or congregants or attendees in their flock. And Greg Laurie has something called the Harvest, where he does I think it's twice a year, and he goes to the Anaheim Stadium, which is a big baseball stadium in Southern California, and he preaches. And I always notice that he wears black. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's kind of like Johnny Cash. So then I thought, I wonder if Jack Hibbs, is it a Southern California thing? Because the pastors at the churches I went to did not wear black jackets. And then I started to notice the black leather jacket. So that's when I started to do a little research. And this is a picture of 2 days ago. So these are not old images. This is Jack Hibbs on his podcast. And that is the screen grab that I got off of YouTube. And then Stephen Furtick, I cannot recommend, again, as I've said, there are so many. You need to use your discernment, friends. I'll just put it that way. Okay. So now he's got his black leather jacket. You really need to use your discernment on Pastor Mark Driscoll and research into some of the controversy around him. He's got his black jacket on. He was kind of run out of his other church for fraud because he used the church money to launch his book. And then he set up shop in Phoenix, Arizona, I think, or maybe outside of Phoenix, Arizona. I don't follow it that clearly. And there's Greg Laurie with the black leather jacket. Now, I actually really like this man's music. His name is Paul Baloche, and he is not only a pastor, but a musician, and he's got the requisite black jacket. So my question, I really want to know what you make of this. Like, is it a uniform? Is it a pastoral uniform that I didn't know of? And what kind of image, how do you feel seeing the black leather jackets? Like, does that bring you into that spiritual realm of, I don't know, prayer and worship and elevating your soul? I'm just asking. Here's another one. I don't know all of them, but now we're getting into the black leather jackets. And I left the little descriptions below the picture so you could see that these were all related to pastors and churches. This is in Pasadena. Maybe it's a Southern California thing. It doesn't get that cold in Southern California. Here's Jack Graham, the black leather jacket. Here's another one, Harvest Bible Church, black leather jacket. Here's another one, Craig Groeschel. I don't know him. He's got the black leather jacket, black t-shirt. Here's another one, Christian pastor, black t-shirt, black leather jacket. Stephen Furtick. I just will pray for his redemption and discernment and direction there. Okay, and here's another one, Whitewater Christian Church, black leather jacket. Pastor Ricky Rush, black leather jacket. Skip Heitzig. Again, I don't know most of these, so I have nothing other than the couple of comments I made about their doctrine or their teaching or preaching or anything. I'm just looking specifically at this pattern that I noticed of the black leather jackets among these non-denominational Christian pastors. Now, this starts to get interesting. Here's another one, local preacher. Now, this Sean Foyt was on the scene with all of the Cooties Hogwash, doing a lot of in-person revivals and music. And I know that many of you, I've actually seen him when I went to a church at Godspeak with in Ventura County. I've been there a couple of times. I've actually spoken there, not as a preacher, but as a guest on a podcast. And I've been to other churches around Southern California speaking. My gosh, I must have been to 4 or 5 churches just in this last couple of years. So Sean Foyt was there. He led the worship. I thought it was excellent. Again, I'm just looking out of curiosity at this pattern. Like, do they all shop at the same place? Did they all, is it a message that they're sending? Does this, if you see somebody in the black leather motorcycle jacket now we're getting into, does that immediately, like, you're a pastor, this is the pastor's uniform? Or is it simply just fashion? Or do they not have, like, they want to be different? They want to be different than all the other pastors that are wearing the black leather motorcycle jackets. All right, here we are. Celebrity pastor. I don't think that's biblical. That's just me, okay? I don't think God, like, calls for pastors to be celebrities. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Carl Lentz. Yes, he was the pastor of Justin Bieber. We know. Don't know how that turned out. Here's another one. And black leather motorcycle jacket. Here's another one. Here's another one. Here's another one. Here's another one. Hillsong. I would also encourage prayer and discernment with any Hillsong activity, music, preaching. Here's another one. Pastor Mike, black leather motorcycle jacket. There we go. Another one, black leather motorcycle, another one. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The women are wearing the black jackets, not necessarily with the big collar, although you'll see that coming up. Now, the Bible does, my understanding of the Bible, correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't really allow for female pastors to teach to men. And you could argue that, I understand we're in the modern day and so forth, but I have noticed that in some of the non-denominational Christian churches and some of the what's called emergent churches, which are kind of creating their own doctrine, they have a lot of female pastors right up there at the pulpit. So I can't tell you about this other than they are the pastors of this church, and they both have the black leather jackets. Stunning. I'm trying to figure it out. Now, it's not always the man. Sometimes it's just the woman. I've noticed here's a little pattern of the women only. Here's another one. Although he's got the black shirt. Here's another one. She's got the black jacket. She's got the black leather motorcycle jacket. He's wearing black. Now, you might say, well, Peggy, it's like a priest, right? Priests wear black robes. So instead of wearing the black robe, they're wearing a black leather motorcycle jacket? I just, if so, I've just been, I've just learned something, because it's so, like, I don't know, I lacking in creativity. Is that too strong? Here's another one. But really, I want to know, are they sending a message? Is this done intentionally, or do they just like the fashion? Now, those of you in Southern California, that would be pretty hot to be wearing that on a regular basis. And I didn't, I just, and I have many more than this. This is just like a sampling. So, and there's the brick wall. Yeah. I'm not going to say that has anything to do with Freemasons. Here's another one. You have to draw your own conclusions. Another one. Here's another one. It's like, and they're there for their headshots. So they're wearing it intentionally. And doesn't your clothing send a message? Here's another one. The brick wall again. I don't know if I showed her before. Here's another one. And now here the whole family got in on it, except for the baby. Well, he's got camo pants on, but he's got a black leather jacket. She doesn't. I think she does. He does. She does. The baby doesn't have one. And then here's this one. So here's this pastor, Justin Bieber's pastor, and with Ofra. That's the pronunciation I use. And you can Google a lot of, or giggle, as my French friend says, you can giggle images of him. And I don't know if he has any other thing. You know what? I think they're all minimalist. I just hit on it. They are all minimalist. That's the only thing they have. And it signals glory to God and elevating the spirit, time to enter into a moment of prayer and contemplation as we consider our spiritual growth. That is probably the message that they're sending with these black leather motorcycle jackets. Now, just for contrast, I'm going to show you a pastor that I do revere, and I do not idolize. We're not to have any idols, but someone that does preach like non-Schofield Bible preaching. And here he is, Pastor Kenneth Campbell. He has a YouTube channel called KPAC, CAPAC, Bible Church. And it's like hymns, right? They don't have the rock music. And I have never seen him in a black leather motorcycle jacket. Not to say that he doesn't have one, but this is typical of how he preaches. And there you have it, friends. Since it's Fun Day Friday, let me see if I can see your comments here, because I am so curious. Oh my gosh, that chat is flying by. Big shout out to the moderators being here day in, day out, all day. We're here Monday through Friday. I start broadcasting at 4 p.m. Pacific, sometimes a little bit later if I have difficulty getting on YouTube. Sometimes they kick me off. It spins. And okay, let's see. All right. Somebody says the stuff you catch is amazing. Ed says, I think Peggy's point is when you represent God, shouldn't you be more in touch with what you are wearing and when you wear it? Michael likes to wear denim. Tirza says, maybe it's because the churches are so cold. Yeah, well, there's all sorts of jackets that aren't black leather motorcycle jackets. And again, okay, Bill says maybe it ties to, can I read his comment out loud? Black rock money. I thought he meant rock, like rock and roll. So when I think of leather motorcycle jackets, and again, you may love that fashion, and I think that's fantastic. Email me a photo, support@thehealthyamerican.org. But these are pastors. And in the Christian church, pastors actually are held to a higher standard. You probably know that. They are held to a higher standard regarding their lifestyle, regarding consumption of alcohol, regarding like they're not supposed to be divorced and married again. And obviously God redeems when people are convicted and they repent of their sins. But in terms of being a pastor or an elder of a church, they are supposed to be upstanding citizens of the community. And again, I don't have any issue with what anybody wears, but when you're representing a church, the bigger question I have is, why are they all doing the same thing? That's my bigger question. Like, that's weird to me. Okay. If somebody had a brown one or somebody had one with stripes, I mean, we did see a little variation with a collar, no collar. But to me, that's the weirdest thing of all. It's not that it's a black leather motorcycle jacket. If they were all wearing purple ties, I would bring it to your attention. If they were all wearing bow ties like the Freemasons, I would bring that to your attention. If they were all wearing a red rubber nose like the doctors do, yeah, look into that sort of red nose day and you'll see the weird stuff behind that. It's more the fact that they're all dressing alike. That's what gets me. It's nothing against the black leather motorcycle jacket, although for me, that gives an image like I'm untouchable. Don't touch me. I'm kind of rough and tough and, that kind of thing. Maybe that's just me. I just made a couple of notes. Yeah, you're tough and unapproachable and maybe it's a little standoffish. These are some words that come to mind. It just strikes me as odd. Like, would you wear that to a wedding? Would you wear that to somebody's birthday party? When I go to church, personally, and again, and we have had some outdoor churches, but even then, I'm not wearing a bathing suit and tank top. All right. I endeavor, and I'm not perfect, and I probably would have made some changes now that I think about it, but I would like to dress respectful. But the bigger picture is, why is it all the same? That's what I'm getting at. Is it a thing? Like, did they all get the memo to wear the black jacket? Or are they sending a message, a hidden message that we don't know about? That would be horrible in my book. What say you? All right, friends, thank you for being on board for our Fun Day Friday. I endeavor to bring something a little more lighthearted on Friday because there is such heaviness that goes through the week. And I am going to end with my own prayer. So let me grab my keyboard here. And we are going to go over to the healthyamerican.org. And this is something that I was inspired to write. And I will tell you, if you are interested in reading some old-fashioned prayers, there is a book called The Valley of Vision. And there is a style that I was influenced by. Speaking of being influenced, and here we go. I'm going to share my screen, and this is over at thehealthyamerican.org. If you click on resources and you go under free documents, and then if you scroll down, I'm probably going to update this page so it might not look the same when you're there. I'll try to make it a little easier for you, but here you go. The Healthy American Prayer for Activists. And you can download this, you can print it, hope that you will enjoy it. And let's finish with this because heaven knows the world needs our prayer. All of those that are suffering, all of those that are engaged in this, these holy wars and trying to justify them. It's so deeply troubling to me. So here we go, a prayer for activists. Oh Lord, I long that people might hear the truth. Give me assistance in reaching others with my heart uplifted for your grace and wisdom. Guide me to share my views with fullness of truth, clarity of thought, proper expressions. All right, that's an area where I still need to grow. I acknowledge that. Fervency and conviction, I have that down pat, guided by your wisdom and light. Keep me conscious of my faults and flaws. Open my heart, Lord, to hear the sorrows of others and shine your light of comfort and peace. May no soul be lost to your love. That is my single sentence prayer. Strengthen me by your spirit. Stand between me and all strife, and heaven knows it's coming, so I may speak fully and freely and do this work that you have called me to do. Amen. I need to remember that prayer. I need to read that prayer more frequently because I realize there are times that you may feel that I have crossed the line. God may feel that I've crossed the line. And I understand. I do have that fervency and conviction because I care. I'm sure I'm like you. You're troubled by these devastating events that are happening, not only in our country, but in countries throughout the world. And when we are unable to do anything more than pray, that can lead you to a sense of feeling hopeless and helpless. I have a video on this channel called Observe, Don't Absorb. And then I also have another very powerful one called Witnessing Tragedy. I think I will do an update on that because there are so many that among our lovely Healthy American audience that are just their soul is shattered and in anguish from what we're seeing going on, while it seems like part of the world is turning a blind eye. So I am grateful for all of you for your comments. And just a reminder that on a rare occasion, I am able to reply to your emails that are forwarded to me from my assistant. And that's over at support@thehealthyamerican.org. But it's very difficult for me to carry on a long-term email correspondence. That's why I do my videos. This is where I give you my perspective. And occasionally I can do a comment to reply to you in the comment section, or actually I can't reply to the live stream because that cuts off after the video is over, but that's where you can also interact on the Substack. So the Substack is free. It's peggyhall.substack.com. And that is where you get, on many of my videos, not all of them, a written version, sometimes with more detail and links for you to research further. It's very easy to share, and that is a way that we can stay in touch if these channels ever go down. I also have another channel, which is Living Swell with Peggy Hall. That's here on YouTube, and we talk mainly about uplifting topics. I call it keeping your head above the waves in these stormy seas of life so that we can find smoother sailing and brighter days ahead. We are promised that. And that is why I can stand before you in confidence and compassion and optimism going forward. So thank you everybody for being on board. I hope that you have a wonderful weekend. Please share my videos, comment, and I look forward to seeing you in an upcoming broadcast. And as I say, always on the Substack, peggyhall.substack.com.